Hello, this re- this reflection is for Good Friday, which is on April 2nd this year. This section is on Mark 14:53 through 72. This occurs, Mark tells us, in the evening after the disciples have already fallen asleep 3 times. I'm going to say that this is starting at around midnight, but you could really make a case for probably even around 3 a.m. It is very, very late. The mob took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, the elders, and the scribes were assembled. Peter had followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest, and he was sitting with the guards, warming himself at the fire. Now, the chief priests and the whole council were looking for testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they found none. For many gave false testimony against him, and their testimony did not agree. Some stood up and gave false testimony against him, saying, "We heard him say, 'I will destroy this temple that is made with hands, and in 3 days I will make another not built with hands.'" But each testimony did not agree. Then the high priest stood up before them and asked Jesus, "Have you no answer? What is it that they testify against you?" Jesus was silent and did not answer. Again, the high priest asked him, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" Jesus said, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "Why do we still need witnesses? You have heard this blasphemy. What is your decision?" All condemned him as deserving death. Some began to spit on him, to blindfold him, and to strike him, saying, "Prophesy." Then the guards also took him over and beat him. While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servants of the high priest came by. When she saw Peter warming himself, she stared at him and said, "You were also with Jesus, the man from Nazareth." But he denied it, saying, "I do not know or understand what you're talking about." And he went out into the forecourt. And then the cock crowed. And the servant girl, on seeing him, began again to say to the bystanders, "This man is one of them." But he began to curse and swore an oath, "I do not know the man you're talking about." At that moment, the cock crowed. Then, after a little while, one of the bystanders said to Jesus, pardon, I skipped ahead. After a little while, one of the bystanders again said to Peter, "Certainly you are one of them, for you are Galilean." But he began to swear an oath and said, "I don't know this man you're talking about." At that moment, the cock crowed for the second time. And Peter remembered what Jesus had said to him, "Before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." He broke down and wept. This section of Mark's gospel shows a kind of trial. And I say a kind of trial for a few reasons. First off, it is very late at night. Mark doesn't tell us what time it is, but it's late enough that the disciples and Jesus had the Passover meal, that they went from where they were having the Passover meal sometime in Jerusalem across Kidron Valley and up to the Mount of Olives, to the Garden of Gethsemane where Jesus had prayed. There was enough time for the disciples to fall asleep, not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, when a mob led by Judas came and grabbed him. And this mob took Jesus to the place of the high priest, where we're told that there were and scribes and elders assembled. It says all of the elders and all of the scribes, but we know that it could not have been all of them, because we know from John's gospel that there were people who supported Jesus. If there was a large crowd who supported him, and Mark's gospel makes it abundantly clear that there would have been some priests, some elders, some scribes who did. When Mark tells us that the elders and the scribes and the chief priests were assembled. This is the group that is opposed to Jesus. They have convened, and they all decide together that Jesus is deserving of death. The problem, of course, being that they don't have any legal standing to do anything about that. A crime of death means nothing because they are not the people who administer this area. We are in the Roman province of Judea. I could, for instance, decide that bananas are a terrible fruit and no one should be able to have bananas. And since I am not the dictator, either of this country or of this state or of this county, that decision has no bearing, has no meaning. However, it is unsettling. You have a large group of the elites, the political, religious, and economic elites. A large group of them have gathered along with their followers, and they have taken this person. They have taken this person by stealth and at night. He is being spat upon. He is being beaten. He is being questioned. Their testimony doesn't agree, except that they need to find a way to deal with it. Peter is pointed out by a servant girl of the high priest. So one of the high priest's servant girls recognized Peter. This might mean that this servant girl was listening to Jesus as he was teaching in the temple all day Tuesday, or as he was throwing out the money changers on Monday. Someone else recognizes that Peter's accent is a Galilean. That means that this group was a group of people who lived in or around Jerusalem. And they could recognize that this person sounded different from them. Remember that Jerusalem has people pouring in from all over. They have Jews from every country on earth that are coming to this place. It is only a small subset. It's only the chief priests, the elders, and the scribes and their supporters, or more honestly, a subset of that group that has decided that Jesus must die. And even though they don't have any legal way to do so, they have ways to influence policy. When I think of this text, I often wonder if my life were on the line. As Peter felt like his was, how would I respond? Would I proclaim my faith boldly, like Peter would ultimately do, at least according to tradition, generations later? Or would I deny it and try to save my skin? And if Peter had said, I'm one of them, what would have happened to him? Would have he been the leader of the early church that we know both from Acts and from Paul's letters and from early Christian tradition? Would have we lost that connection, that person who knew Jesus intimately and well? Would have he lost that chance to be an apostle and disciple? Is the world a better place because Peter has that regret and because Jesus could forgive Peter even despite what he did? Doesn't that mean good news for me and for you? Because Jesus could forgive us for our failings and our shortcomings, for our weaknesses, for our ways, that we too aren't who we would want to be. Regardless of what happens, all during the night, Jesus is being questioned, he's being abused, he's being spat upon. His long night is only going to get worse.